Hello, Penn Staters, and welcome to the Football Letter Podcast. This week, we're speaking with Lew Lazarow. Lew is a 1993 Penn State graduate, and he's also the director of the Penn State All-Sports Museum. It's sort of difficult to say the All-Sports Museum is a hidden gem when it's located in Beaver Stadium, but that's what it feels like sometimes. We're going to talk with him about the new Franco Harris mosaic mural that's up that honors truly one of the all-time Penn State legends, one of the all-time good guys in Franco Harris. We'll get his reaction to that. He'll share some information on that. There's also an ongoing World War II exhibit at the All Sports Museum. If you've never visited the place, it is a destination for all Penn Staters. And so we're going to welcome Lew into the show. And Lew Lazarow, welcome to the Football Letter Podcast. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing great as well. Always a great day to be a Penn Stater. So we're going to be talking about a lot of, one of the all-time greats here with Franco Harris. We're sitting here middle of November. The podcast will run shortly after this. The mural opened just a couple days ago, Sunday, right, November 12th. I know a lot of folks have probably heard about it, but maybe a good intro would be, could you just share a little bit of the backstory of the Franco Harris mural? Maybe, how it came to be and how those ideas came together. Franco Harris, of course, passing away, and it's honoring just one of the all-time great Penn State legends.
Yeah, absolutely. So the genesis of it, obviously, is unfortunately is Franco's passing last December. We were on break. The university was closed when that happened. When we came back with the start of the new semester, when folks were coming in to visit within those first several weeks in January, that was the question that everybody was asking: what are you going to do? Like, what's the plan to memorialize Franco here in the museum? And while it was something that had crossed our minds, it wasn't something that we had developed real fully in that first month after his passing. And we didn't want to rush it. We wanted to make sure that we did something that was appropriate and meaningful. So we really kind of let it marinate for a while, and we kicked around a whole bunch of different ideas and thought about things. And it wasn't until a little bit later in the spring that I was actually sitting right here, and I was having a conversation with my wife, and we were just kind of talking about sort of the challenge of creating something that was meaningful, that really represented who Franco was. And we both started talking about the 2007 Hints ice cream social for homecoming weekend, when Franco was the Grand Marshal. And so we were both there for it, and we had our son, who was about 8 at the time, and he wanted to meet Franco along with literally everybody else in the room. So Franco was surrounded by a mob of people. It was the largest gathering I think that I had ever seen come out for any Grand Marshal at that event. And so we kind of got into the mob and, worked him forward, and got, a photo of him with Franco, and he got his football signed by Franco. And throughout the whole thing, I was just stunned at how Franco was kind and patient, and he wouldn't leave that room until everybody had a photograph, everybody had, an autograph. Whatever it is that they wanted, he was there until the very end. And there were hundreds of people that were waiting to do that. So, we just kind of looked at that moment and went, well, wasn't that was what Franco was all about? And then we started thinking, how many people have that photo, not just from that event, but from the entire stretch of his entire career, his entire life. And we went, wouldn't it be ideal, right, for people to memorialize Franco with the one thing that he was always so willing to give, which was their photographs with him? So that's when I kind of massaged that idea a bit, and we came across a company called Picture Mosaics. That's what they do, which is create these massive photo mosaics that people can contribute their photos to. So I had a conversation with them, and the rest of it just kind of went straight to success right from there.
Yeah, I just wanted to stay on that for a moment because, one, you're absolutely right. Folks would go up to Franco Harris and ask him a question that he had been asked tens of thousands of times, maybe more, without exaggerating. And those folks would say he answered that question like it was the first time that he was asked it. And so I think, well, I don't think, I know that bringing the alumni network and the fan base into, a way to remember Franco, I think is the perfect way to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
What was the scene like when the mural was revealed, in terms of, the emotions that were on display and just the looks on people's faces when they saw it?
Oh, it was really it was really like, it was heartfelt. It was a beautiful moment. Um, pulling that curtain aside and allowing the mural to be seen by the public for the first time. It was intense, I guess, is really kind of the best way to, because even though it's been a year, I think everybody is still just kind of stunned, right? Because we lost him just out of the blue. I mean, it was only like, like I had photos submitted from literally like the week before that people had taken with him. And so to have lost him that suddenly, and especially, and I think everybody kind of says this, is that like he had so much more that he was going to do, right? That he was capable of doing. And so to have him kind of enshrined in this way in the museum for everybody, Penn State or not, to have them be able to come in and see him. And I mean, and in truth, right, the photos that we had submitted stretched the entire span of his life. So his childhood in New Jersey, his high school career, his college career here, his Steelers career, his NFL like Hall of Fame, sort of like appearances, along with all the different businesses and the people that he worked with there, and his Special Olympics work. Like all of like people from every walk of his life contributed to this. So while certainly we feel very attached to this, and everybody who was there for the unveiling felt attached to it because we were all, Penn Staters and there for that, this I think connects to so many more people beyond just us.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned his work with the Special Olympics, because there was so much that he did off the field, giving back to the community. Of course, Sue Paterno, very much involved with Special Olympics. You're right. Like, Franco was a force of nature. You just thought this. I mean, you would see him at an event, and the amount of energy that he had would just be astonishing.
Completely true. Absolutely. There was no stopping the man. He was always busy. He was always involved in something. And he was unabashedly like forward in the things that he loved and the things that he wanted to support and the things that he felt mattered. And he would dig in and just work at it until it was done. Just a remarkable person.
Yeah, to your point, Kristen Conti, the president of our Pittsburgh chapter, or Pittsburgh alumni chapter, Franco was a friend of the chapter. She was on earlier this season just talking about, and to your point, even though he left us coming up on a year now, I
Right.
mean, it still feels fresh. It still feels like, you're still kind of in the immediate aftermath of
It feels
processing.
unbelievable. It's like you still can't sort of realize that this is now we're without Franco now, right? That he's no longer here, because he's so present in so many different aspects of of Penn State life and Pennsylvania life. It's hard to fathom.
Well, I think that's why it's important that this mosaic is here. It'll be up until, I believe, December of 2024. Folks can stop by the museum. Tying it into the larger museum, or the museum itself,
Mhm.
honoring an all-time great Penn Stater, not just a great player, a great person. How much does that tie into the mission of the museum? Like, how much does it make sense that this Franco Harris mosaic is at the All-Sports Museum?
It's an absolute, it's a point of pride, in a sense for us, as the museum. And of course our mission is to preserve the history of everything that is Penn State athletics. So it's valuable and important and necessary, because he is so much a part of the history of Penn State athletics and Penn State in general. So he's such an active and a vibrant, aspect of that history. And that I mean, the whole purpose of museums, of course, is to allow people to reflect on the past, and then leave with something that kind of inspires them forward. And I think that more than anything, that's kind of the value of this mural, is that, and it was something that I talked about at the unveiling on Saturday, was that uh, uh, if Franco was such a powerhouse and was so significant in terms of the work that he did, he left us with the rest of that to do. Now we're the ones who kind of carry all those different aspects of his work, his passion for Penn State and Penn State athletics, his passion for Special Olympics, his passion for minority-owned businesses, all of those sorts of things now become our responsibility. And I think that the mural, like so much else that we have in the museum, isn't just about enshrining what happened in the past, but inspiring people to continue to drive those sorts of things forward and to create the future, not just remember the past.
Yeah, and I remember when Penn State went out to the Rose Bowl earlier this year, the team wore, because I saw number 34 on the helmet there, and I just, for what it's worth, I love the numbers on the Penn State football helmets. You know, Franco, of course, wore 34 at Penn State, and at the Rose Bowl, when the team arrived the day of the game, everyone, coaches, including James Franklin and all the players, wore a number 34 jersey, and so certainly Franco means a lot in terms of the heritage in the past, but current Penn Staters, they know like who Franco Harris was and the impact that he had. And so, you know, it was just, it spans generations.
It does.
And so I feel like you and I could sit here for quite a long time and talk about Franco Harris.
Absolutely.
But I tell you what, just one or two other things we wanted to touch on with the museum. Sure. And I just have it fresh in my mind because it's 1973, the 50th anniversary of John Cappelletti's Heisman. Our magazine ran that as a cover story in its latest issue. The Cappelletti Heisman Trophy is, the last I heard, that's still on display at the All-Sports Museum. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the centerpieces of the football exhibit. You bet.
So, you know, we can have, so if you're a Penn State football fan, there's a lot of things happening at the museum. I guess, you know, I'll ask you, Lew, beyond maybe some of the things that we're talking about, what are, you know, one or two things that the museum that you would like to point out? I know that there's a World War II exhibit. You know, maybe there's a couple other things there that people would be surprised to know that's there. And so just kind of giving you the floor and letting you share what else is happening at the museum.
Oh, I am happy to do so for sure. So obviously the core of the museum itself, our main galleries, we have exhibits on every Penn State sports team. So all the current ones that are active in our varsity sports program, along with a few that were discontinued at various points along the way. Things we used to compete in, like at the varsity level, bowling, rifle, boxing, that we no longer do. So there's these great historical aspects of all of our teams. As well as, you know, we've done everything that we can to keep up with what it is that's happening in the present moment. So those are our two main galleries that have all different kinds of history dating back to the origin of every one of the teams, their very first seasons, and then their records all the way through, and some of the great individuals that have competed on behalf of Penn State over the years. Our special exhibit, of course, we try and rotate through and do new special exhibits about every 3 years or so, because this is the 80th anniversary of World War II. Going on during these range of years, we put together a display and exhibit on the over 1,200 student athletes who served during the World War II conflict. So it's a phenomenal exhibit in the sense that it encompasses the service careers of men and women. So even though women did not have a varsity program until 1964, we went back into the records to find the Women's Recreation and Women's Athletic Association participants, and we included them as a part of the exhibit to talk about what women were doing during the war. And that was everything from work here on the home front to actually being posted overseas in a variety of different places. We had Penn Staters in every branch of the service, every theater of operation, all the way around the world. From before the war even officially started in China, all the way up through post-war reconstruction in the various war-torn areas around the world. It's a remarkable exhibit. We had tremendous, just stunning participation from the families of our veterans. They contributed so much to help us be able to put the exhibit together. Stories that they had recorded as part of their family history, as well as actual artifacts, telegrams that they had received back in the 1940s, full uniforms, patches, insignias, medals, as well as some really extraordinary, like one-of-a-kind, completely unique items that even we're impressed that they've survived the last 80 years. So all of that is on display. But we're really proud of this exhibit, and everybody who's been through to see it has said that it's a remarkable tribute to a remarkable generation of Penn Staters. And it also, of course, not only talks about the individuals, but it talks about the history of Penn State during those years, what was going on campus, how the war affected campus life, and what changed as a result of the war years afterwards, as everybody started to come back. So it's a really fascinating and deep historical perspective on an extraordinary group of people, and an extraordinary time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that shouldn't be forgotten.
Mm.
I understand Roger Williams, the former leader of the Alumni Association. I think he serves on the advisory board, or he's a
Yep.
consultant. He's very much involved. And I know I saw him at Arts Fest, and he was you could just tell he was so proud of that World War II exhibit. I tell you what, Lew, we'll wrap up here. I think we've got the video of the team arriving at the Rose Bowl. So with this in mind, we'll just go back and end with Franco because it feels appropriate.
It sure does.
You talked about that moment that you had with Franco, with your family here at the Hintz Family Alumni Center. Just on a personal level, what has it been like working on this project and then seeing it, come full circle and having it opened on Sunday? What was Sunday like for you personally, knowing everything that went into this?
It was obviously there was a level of stress. I kind of wanted that moment to be, I wanted it to be a perfect moment. I wanted it to be perfect for, the people who were in attendance. Cause I mean, Dana, obviously his widow was here for it. And I wanted that to be a real special moment for her. I wanted her to be, and I'd been in communication with her throughout the entire process, just kind of keeping her updated. But obviously, it went so well, perfectly. Everybody was just so happy with the way that it turned out. And my own personal sense of I mean, I'll call it satisfaction. I mean, but it's more than that, I guess. I mean, I really felt like this was, for me, this was a big contribution, right? I come from a service mindset, and working in museums is really about service to your institution, to the public, to really give them something to help them to understand and make sense of otherwise very complex, difficult things that, and so I felt that sense of satisfaction that I had managed to accomplish that with this. I'd given people an ability to sort of have their own catharsis, submitting their own photos, sharing those stories. The online version has some amazing captions that went along with the submission of those photographs. Just people really told their stories. And I was thinking about it yesterday, sort of standing in front of it, just looking at it when I came in, and thinking about how over the course of the next year, all these strangers, people who don't know each other, are going to come into the museum. They're going to stand in our lobby. They're going to stand next to each other. They're going to point out their photo in the mural, and they're going to share the stories of how they met Franco with each other. And I think Franco would be absolutely delighted that people would be doing that, sort of, and that he would be in some way responsible for people who didn't know each other to make that connection with each other. That's everything that I could have hoped for with this.
Lew, you just summed it up so well. I mean, I'm sitting here and it's just, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for shepherding this project. The All-Sports Museum opens 6 days a week at the southwest corner of Beaver Stadium, opposite of the Bryce Jordan Center. Lew, we got to have you on the podcast again. So let's,
Absolutely. I'm happy to.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Penn State graduate, Lew Lazarow. Lew, thanks so much for stopping by the podcast. Appreciate you, sir.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Anytime.
Feels good to be home.
Hello, Penn Staters, and welcome to the Football Letter podcast. This week, we're catching up with Jeremy Omard. Jeremy is a 2013 Penn State graduate and an absolute rock star, superstar volunteer for the Alumni Association. Jeremy is the president of our African-American Alumni Organization of Washington, D.C. The organization is one of our 200-plus affiliate groups that connects Penn Staters across the country and really across the world. Professionally, Jeremy is a senior managing consultant at IBM. He is a 2021 Alumni Achievement Award recipient from the Penn State Alumni Association, which recognizes outstanding alumni 35 years and younger. Short story, Jeremy is a superstar. We're going to bring him to you this week on the Football Letter podcast. Jeremy, how are you doing today, sir? We're so glad that you're making some time for us.
I'm doing outstanding, John. Thank you for the amazing introduction and the kind words.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much deserved. We talked a little bit about before we started recording here about the significance of the AAAO in Washington, D.C. And just so folks know, when we say AAAO, that's the shorthand for the African-American Alumni Organization of Washington, D.C. Can you maybe just give a little bit of an overview of that group, its purpose, its mission, and kind of, how you unite Penn Staters year round?
Yeah, so really the purpose of the AAAOs in their entirety, we have organizations in DC, New York, Atlanta. We have Trying to chapter organization in Los Angeles, and of course we have Pittsburgh as well. And the goal of the AAAOs is to show that the Penn State experience doesn't have to end after undergrad for Black alumni. We're really focusing on promoting the university's goals, giving back to both students as well as our alumni base, and really just having the service within the Black Penn State community to show that we do exist. We're all doing well post grad, and that we're here to continue to hone on the legacy that we've established during our tenure at Penn State.
So, like many of our chapters, your group will host watch parties for football games throughout the season. How do you use game day in the fall as a way to unite Penn Staters and maybe leverage it for other opportunities within the AAAO?
Yeah, so the beauty about our watch parties is, for the most part, everyone loves Penn State football. No matter how we're doing in the season, folks come out to support our football team. So we've been able to capitalize on that buzz to really bring both seasoned alumni as well as new alumni who just traverse to the DC area, so that they know that the AAAOs exist, that there are alumni in the area who want to do other stuff. And we've used it as both a networking opportunity within the Penn State community. We've done partnerships not only with some of the other AAAOs, we've also partnered with some of the DC-based organizations, such as the Metro Washington chapter, Smil Club DC, the Professional Women's Network of DC. But we've also branched out and supported some of the other Big Ten universities and have hosted joint watch parties. A good example is during the Ohio State game, we actually ran into the Black Ohio State alumni during the beginning of our football season, and we said, "Hey, we're both at the same watch party venue. Why don't we have a joint watch party?" And it was probably one of our best attended watch parties. We had over 50 plus alumni for our organization alone, and Ohio State came out and showed out as well. So great way to network not only within the Penn State ecosystem, but with other Big Ten universities as well.
Yeah, Jeremy, let's stay on this just for another question or two, because I think what you just mentioned is a really great point with the AAAO working together with other Penn State affiliate groups. How much does that help and how much does that support mean to you, knowing that, in addition to the Alumni Association within our alumni network, you've got other Penn Staters in your area that you can work with, that you can depend on. How much does that strengthen what you're doing, and how much are you in a position to then help them as well?
Yeah, so I think it helps immensely. There's always this saying that there's strength in numbers, and outside of Pennsylvania, the DC metro area has the largest alumni populace within the U.S. So being able to piggyback off of some of the other DC-based organizations really does help to simplify our planning purposes while maximizing our return on investment. And iron sharpens iron at the end of the day. So if we have best practices, or some of the other organizations have best practices, we learn from each other, and we're able to continue to do great events for our members.
Iron sharpens iron. You're starting to sound like James Franklin and lead the Penn State football. And, the DMV area is strong. To your point, we were just in Maryland a few weeks ago. I've said before, if you close your eyes in College Park, Maryland, it feels like you're at Beaver Stadium sometimes.
John, one quick alibi: State College, Maryland, because it really was a home game for Penn State.
Right. Well, I got it. Yeah, you're right. I was gonna say I try to be a little more objective, but you're right. We can just be biased here and say, yeah, State College Park, Maryland. Um, on a personal level, I mean, you're a Penn State grad, you're obviously passionate about Penn State. When you're at, a watch party or you're at another event that your group is hosting, on a personal level, what does it mean to see you connect with other Penn Staters and then also see the Penn Staters kind of make connections on their own and just know that, you're playing a significant role in strengthening the alumni network?
Yeah, so it's interesting because, of course, we come together to watch Penn State and to bond in all things Penn State. Uh, but the conversations that we have at a lot of these events are really game changing and changing, for lack of a better word. At our watch parties and other community based events, I've ran into so many different alumni from various walks of lives. Some I've served as mentees for, or mentors for, some that have been my mentees. We really kind of piggybacked off each other and leverage each other's experiences to better ourselves at the end of the day. And then it's always nice to kind of pay it forward to the next generation of Penn Staters and alumni, just because of the fact that we've been there, we've done that, we have our lessons learned, and if we kind of impart our knowledge to the next group of Penn Staters and make their lives easier, by all means, why not?
So I wanted to ask you, and that's very well said, Jeremy. And I wanted to ask you, sort of staying on this topic, the sense of giving back, to your community, to your alma mater. You volunteered with the Maryland Defense Force, which is part of the Maryland Military Department. Where does that sense of volunteerism, that sense of wanting to give back and pay it forward, as you said, where does that come from for you?
Yeah, so paying it forward has always been something that's been important to me, and it's been one of my passions. But I think the marquee event that really drove that point home was September 11th. So I'm a New Yorker. As my friends like to joke, even though I live in the DMV, my heart resides in New York still. And I was in New York during September 11th, so the terrorist attacks felt pretty personal. I don't know any New Yorker who wasn't changed after September 11th, and really, I want to, reach out, help those who have just been impacted in life, because at the end of the day, we all have one life to live. And if I can do something to make someone's lives better and vice versa, um, then why not? And that's really kind of been that driving factor of me giving back and paying it forward. In addition to that, I've been in a lot of other organizations, such as Civil Air Patrol. I was in Air Force ROTC, and I was always at like top cadet. But one of my instructors always said that you're always the top of the class, but one thing I want to challenge you is to give back to the next cohort of cadets, because your legacy is only as strong as the current pipeline that continues to come in. And that really was eye opening because, of course, when you're young, you just want to be the best that you can be. You want to get all the medals, the trophies, the ribbons, and things of that nature. And I really didn't think about paying it forward to that next generation of upcoming cadets. And that was just something that I started to slowly but surely do. And it's kind of like just one of the things that I really look forward to doing in today's environment as well. Whether it's in my role in the Maryland Defense Force, I'm the commander for our 255th Cyber Defense Unit. And I really hone our young NCOs and our young officers to be better prepared to defend against threats in cyberspace. And or with my work within IBM, I'm very passionate about working with the next generation of IBMers, and paying it forward so that they can navigate the corporate America, for lack of better words, in the easier manner than I have.
Well, staying with the point in terms of, you live in DMV, but your heart resides in New York City. The transition moving to the Washington D.C. Maryland area, and then getting connected with the AAAO. How did that happen? Did you know about the group before you got there, and kind of maybe what was the role that the group has played for you? Just personally, professionally, kind of getting acclimated and making DC your home.
Yes, so as involved as I was within the Penn State ecosystem, I actually didn't know about AAAO post grad. And it was funny because I had a Penn State shirt on, I was going grocery shopping, and I ran to another alumni who, of course, yelled out the infamous "We are," and I responded Penn State. We exchanged contact information, and he talked about the AAAOs, primarily the DC one, since I'm in the DC metro area. And from there, I got involved with a lot of the leadership at that time, and really just wanted to figure out what does the organization do? How do they really promote the Penn State brand? I went to several of their events. And of course, being the new kid on the block, they volunteered me to become the membership chair. As so many other chapters, AIGs, and other affiliate groups, sometimes you kind of get voluntold into leadership positions and kind of sets the trajectory for your career growth. But from there, I went from membership to treasurer. I became the president. and I've been the president ever since. They won't let me leave, unfortunately, or I guess that's a gift and a curse. But it was nice because leading the organization, and I just had a conversation with students at Penn State Barron during the cybersecurity and AI presentation that I hosted. The experience you have, whether it's in your undergrad student organizations or your postgrad alumni organizations, really do help you to be a better practitioner, no matter what you're doing, because the world's full of diverse people with diverse mindsets. And working with these organizations really does allow you to work with people who think different than you. And it allows you to really kind of hone your leadership skills, especially your soft skills, and really focusing on how to develop yourself as a better leader, how to manage individuals, how to provide services to your constituents. Those are skills that I've been able to leverage in my capacity as a volunteer for Penn State and introduce them back into my role at IBM.
Jeremy, I'm smiling because you said something that is so relatable in terms of you got involved with the chapter very quickly, and then you kind of got voluntold, or you took on a leadership role very quickly. When we were at DC or in Maryland a few weeks for the football game, we were chatting with I think she was a social media chair with the chapter, and I just asked her, how did you get involved with the chapter? And she said she went to a meeting and they asked her if she wanted to be the social media chair, and so because she's like, well, how do I get involved? And it was like, well, right here you go. And so it's wanting to get involved, it might be a little bit more, you might go to a meeting just thinking you're there to figure out what's going on. And the next thing you're the vice president, you're the president, you're very much involved. And so, but I think it says a lot about you, Jeremy, your willingness to kind of jump in and take on those leadership roles. So just wanted to take a moment here on the podcast. Thank you, Jeremy. We're speaking here with Jeremy Omard, president of our AAAO in Washington, D.C., talking about how the organization, leverages Penn Staters on game day, but really year round. I wanted to take a step back here in a second, but we'll stick with the organization just here for another question, Jeremy. What are some things that maybe the organization has coming up, or what are a couple of the marquee things that you do year round, outside of the football season?
Yes, I think one of our marquee events is the Black Alumni Reunion, and the various AAAOs throughout the U.S. Work with the Black Penn State Network in order to provide leadership for the various committees and chair positions that ultimately organize the Black Alumni Reunion. So we're shooting for 2024. We have conversations with the Alumni Association coming up in the next month or so to hone out dates, venue locations, and things of that nature. But the Black Alumni Reunion is one of our biggest events. In addition to that, we also host our own barbecue on top of the student send off that some of the chapters do. And that serves for two folds. In the past, because AAAO DC really had a lot of young alumni, we hosted a lot of happy hour events in DC. And some of the more seasoned alumni always said that after work, they don't feel like coming back into the city. They just want to go home. So can we do something that's more family orientated? So we started doing cookouts, and we had great attendance for our cookouts. And that's one of our big things that we try to do annually, just to give back to the greater Penn State community. Individuals bring their family. We've had babies who hopefully will become Penn Staters in the future attend the events as well. So that's one of our marquee events. And then in addition to that, of course, we host our holiday party, and we try to have some type of community outreach component baked into that as well. Currently, we're actually partnering with several schools in Pennsylvania, such as Carnegie Mellon, UPenn, and Pitt, to host a joint holiday party. And we're also ironing out the details for a give back opportunity in that capacity as well.
Yeah, that's great. If you're watching the video version, we've got information scrolling at the bottom of the screen from our producer Vince Lingaro, so that you can learn more about the AAAO in DC. Jeremy, a little bit of a two-part question for you. I wanted to ask, how did Penn State become the school for you growing up? And then along with that, what was the role of Penn State Barron? How big of a role did that campus play for you?
Yeah, so during that trying time of your senior year in high school, where you're really just trying to figure out what's your next steps. I applied to Penn State, I applied to Maryland, I applied to Howard University, and I applied to Virginia Tech. The issue with Maryland and Howard, being that I did high school in Maryland, was that both universities were just too close. I kind of wanted to flock off and do my own thing. So that really limited things to Penn State and Virginia Tech. And when I went to Penn State, primarily the Barron campus, because that was one of the first campuses that I did visit, I just fell in love with the Penn State community. The faculty were very helpful. The staff were very helpful, and I'm also biased because my favorite color is blue, so I think that was divine intervention somehow. And I honestly felt comfortable at Penn State, and I decided to sign my life away, for lack of better words. And it's probably been one of the best decisions that I made because Penn State has helped to shape me as a leader, as a professional, and as a volunteer at the end of the day. Going back to your second part of the question about Barron and this influence on me, um, I always say that the Penn State system and primarily Barron did a very good job at preparing me for the workforce. I always joke and say I had a very strict professor who worked with Steve Jobs before Steve Jobs was the big Apple hotshot. And the professor was very strict about agile software development, requirement analysis, and all things tech. And I joked and said, when are we going to use this? And a lot of the other students in my class felt the same way. And then my first project at IBM was an agile software development project. And it just felt like deja vu because everything that the professor told me was basically what was going on from the daily scrums to having the conversations with the client, to honing our requirements. It just felt like a capstone project, which made the transition for me seamless because been there, done that, got the grade to prove it. Where some of the other consultants at IBM who went to other Big Ten schools, they didn't have that knowledge base because they were just taught differently. So kudos to the professors, the faculty, the staff at Penn State and Penn State Barron. Um, Literally, the curriculum helped prepare me perfectly for the real world. And I'm super appreciative of my Penn State education because it really did allow me to hit the ground running.
Yeah, you're right, Jeremy. It was a life decision. You know, our CEO, Paul Clifford, likes to say when you attend Penn State, it's not a 4-year decision, it's a 40-year decision. So very, very insightful there, Jeremy. Have a couple quick hit questions for you. So when you're back on campus, whether it's the Barron campus or University Park campus, what are a few things that you like to do?
Yeah. So I just like to tour campus. And me and my wife, who's also a Penn State, we joke and say we need to go to all the Penn State campuses because they always have something different to offer. But whether I'm at Barron, whether I'm at University Park, because those are the two campuses that I'm the most familiar with, I try to see what's new on campus because I feel as though every couple of months something new happens. I remember the first time going back to Barron, they had a food truck, and one of the staff uh, taking me to the food truck to just get a quick bite for lunch. And I was like, where was this when I was a student? Similar to going to University Park right after Mad Max was shut down. Rest in peace. That was a great spot to go to. But it's just surreal to kind of just be back on campus and see what's changed or what's still the same at the end of the day. The more things change, the more they truly do stay the same. So even though a new spot opened up on campus, it still has that old school feel oftentimes.
Yeah, folks used to walk around on campus and say, "Oh, that's new," and now it's more like, "Oh, hey, that's still here," because
Yes.
everything, like everything. Yeah, I mean, we could. Yeah, Mad Max is gone. It's just the diner's gone. It's one of those things where, if there's a downtown place that you like and you're back on campus, like make sure you get there because you just don't know like what the trajectory or how the trajectory is going. Um, Favorite ice cream flavor from the creamery?
Ooh, probably alumni swirl now. As a student, I probably wouldn't have said that, but I feel as though every time I come back on campus and I'm talking to someone in the alumni association, I get one of the free creamery vouchers. Those are like the greatest gift of all time. Somehow I just get alumni swirl, and I think I've been kind of just like indoctrinated into the alumni swirl club.
It's good. Like I'm not just saying this because I work for the Alumni Association. I tried it just because, well, it says Alumni Swirl. And I don't even like blueberries. It is good. Alumni Swirl. Like trust Jeremy, trust myself. You can't go wrong.
10 out
Um,
of
Other than maybe the class that you mentioned, the favorite class that you took at Penn State.
hmm, this is a tough one. Um, so I'm just gonna get rid of all my MIS classes just because as an MIS major, I feel as though that's super biased. I would say my next favorite one was actually a lot of my musical classes. So I grew up playing classical piano, and as a student, I hated the piano because I had one of those old school teachers who was very strict about everything from finger position to actually counting your notes and reading your music in a manner that she deemed acceptable. So going back to middle school and high school was a joke. I took music as an easy A because I already knew how to read music and play the piano. But then when I got to Barron, I actually participated in the concert choir. I took a music theory class and I took a jazz class. And it was nice to really just leverage the large catalog of music that Penn State was able to attain, and really learn the foundational competencies that the artists had to kind of compose their song, or hone their instrumental skills.
So, Jeremy, I'm just throwing this out here. There's a piano downstairs in Robb Hall at the Alumni Center. So next time you're back on campus, maybe when there's a big crowd around, we might ask you to play a few notes for us if you don't mind.
I may do that. I did it at the 20 Black Alumni Reunion at the Penn Stater before, so don't tempt me with a good time.
All right. Hey, Jeremy, we'll wrap up with this question, a little bit of a two-parter. I wanted to ask you about the importance and the significance of getting involved with your local chapter. You know, whether it's a AAAO, whether it's another AIG or a chapter or something else. You know, for you, what is the value for someone getting involved in their local chapter? And then maybe what's a piece of advice that you would have for them for what's the best way to get started? Because I think some folks want to get involved, but they're not sure. You know, it might just be as simple as going to a meeting. I don't want to, ask a leading question, but what's the significance of connecting with your local chapter? And then what would be a good piece of advice from you, just for how somebody could get involved?
Yeah, so I believe probably the top benefit of getting involved with a Penn State affiliate group is the fact that you're able to leverage the Penn State network. We have literally Penn Staters around the globe. I've deployed to the Philippines and actually ran into a Penn Stater during the Ohio State game. I realized they were Penn Stater because we were both watching the game on our phone during the meeting, and we were just visibly upset. But that's another story for another time. But the amount of skill, experiences, and connections that Penn Staters have around the globe is almost unfathomable. And just being able to reach out to your local chapter, your local AIG, your local APG, and just really pick the brains of the membership, really can set you up for life. It's weird because your Penn Staters who've done everything, and being able to connect with your fellow alumni and really just understand like where they came, their lessons learned, and what they bring to the greater community is just an amazing opportunity. Now, how can you get involved in a Penn State affiliate group? I hate to say it's as simple as just going to an event, but oftentimes those are the best ways to really get involved with an organization, because at the end of the day, especially since COVID, all the affiliate groups really want to continue to grow. They really want to continue to provide value add to their membership. So coming out to an event saying, hi, I'm the new kid on the block and I want to learn more about your organization, the leaders are just really excited to just reach out with other Penn Staters and to really share what makes their organization one of the premier organizations within the Penn State ecosystem. So come out to an event, say hi to someone, meet a new friend, and by all means, the opportunities are endless.
Jeremy Omard, Penn State graduate, superstar volunteer leader, Alumni Achievement Award recipient. Jeremy, let's keep talking. We need to have you on the podcast again. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Absolutely. Just let me know when you want me on the podcast again.